I'm Robert Simmons, and this video is another in my series of videos about people who make a difference. Once again, today we're talking with my friend and primary care doctor, Dr. Bill Warnock. He has his practice in Shelburne, Vermont at the Champlain Center for Natural Medicine. And I've been a patient of Bill's for over 25 years. He's done me an awful lot of good. And we're here today to talk about one of the 5 most important supplements that people can take to benefit their health.
Well, thanks for having me today.
Oh, thanks for being here today, Bill. I really appreciate what you've been doing, and I'm pretty interested in finding out what you have to tell us about Omega-3.
Okay, omega-3 fatty acids are long-chain fatty acids. The 2 that we're most concerned with are DHA and EPA. And I'll just stick with those abbreviations because the names are really long.
That's all right. I think most of us who might take them will know them by their abbreviations anyway.
So there's not a lot of products that these are contained in. Fish oil is the most common. Our body converts alpha-linoleic acid, which can be plant-based, particularly in flax oil, into EPA and DHA, but it doesn't do so at a very high level, only about 50% conversion, whereas if you buy a fish oil product, you'll see how much in milligrams there is of EPA and DHA.
Okay.
So, do you take fish oil?
I do. Actually, I take the vegetarian version of EPA, DHA, just because I didn't like the taste of the fish oil, and maybe you can talk to people about that too as we get into this. But I'm a believer in taking it, and I'm just right now in the place where I may switch back over to fish oil.
So the vegetarian source of those omega-3 fatty acids is marine algae.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually the reason that it's concentrated in fish, because at the bottom of the food chain in the ocean is marine algae.
Right.
And it just gets more and more concentrated the higher up on the food chain you go. So cod liver oil, shark oil are all high in these omega-3 fatty acids.
Now, who eats the algae? What kind of creatures are down at the bottom there with that?
Well, it's the basis of all life in the ocean, so lots of fish eat it. And
I guess plankton would eat it too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what is it that you know about the benefits of these omega-3s?
Well, for me, I think, as I understand it, I'm taking it to benefit my cardiovascular system primarily. But that's the reason we're doing this video too, is to find out from you, what it's all about and how it helps us.
There's 2 reasons that fish oil or these omega-3s are related to cardiovascular health. One of them is the change in diet in the world concerning oils in the last, let's say, 200 years, with the advent of the ability to express oil out of nuts and seeds. So those nut and seed oils are primarily omega-6.
Mm-hmm. So when that ratio gets up to something like 13-1, that creates problems for health?
Right, because our body genetically is designed for the diet that occurred with our ancestors. The genetics of our body doesn't change that quickly. So the result of that is higher cardiovascular disease. Some studies show dementia can result from that adverse ratio.
Mm-hmm.
But putting that aside, regardless of the ratio, it seems that higher amounts of the omega-3 oils reduce cardiovascular disease.
Okay, so I'm taking it for the right reason at least.
Right. So in most countries of the world, cardiovascular disease is the number one cause of death among people over 40.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know if the audience can tell, but I am over 40.
Well, I don't know. I can't tell.
You can't tell. That's nice. You could tell Bill's my friend.
So, there's other values of fish oil too, or these omega-3 fatty acids. Now, I have to say that in the popular media, you see a study comes out and it says, "Oh, study proves that fish oil doesn't reduce cardiovascular disease." You know, that's what gets the publicity, but it ignores the 6 studies before that showed that it did help with cardiovascular disease. And so there are meta-analyses done of all studies and trying to even the playing field a little bit. And those meta-analyses are really positive towards fish oil helping to reduce cardiovascular disease. In fact, just in the last week, a new study came out that showed it drastically reduces risk of cardiovascular death from cardiovascular disease.
And so we're speaking now, and it's early September of 2019. So that's just in the last week, you say?
Yep. So it's a little bit hard sometimes for the layperson to go through these studies, and some of the studies are with low doses of fish oil, but the analysis show that all the studies, if you're looking at higher doses of fish oil, lead to the same conclusion of reduction of cardiovascular disease risk or death by cardiovascular disease. In fact, one study showed an overall reduction in all causes of mortality for people who took 2,000 milligrams a day of fish oil by 6%.
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty big effect.
It is.
Yeah.
So we know that one effect of fish oil is to lower triglycerides, and you can measure that. So if a person has high triglycerides, the fish oil will lower the triglycerides, but it's thought that the reduction in overall risk of cardiovascular disease is not related to that lowering of triglycerides. In fact, fish oil doesn't affect at all LDLs, which are the bad cholesterol, the HDLs, which is the good cholesterol. So there's some other mechanism at work there, and that's important to note. Fish oil, as I mentioned, also has an effect on dementia. The brain uses at a higher level than any other part of the body those omega-3 fatty acids.
Oh, okay.
And there's been several studies showing lower progression of various forms of dementia with those who take fish oil, lower incidence of it occurring as well. So it's important for brain health to have that fish oil. And interestingly enough, it's added to baby formulas because it's been shown that infant development is affected by higher levels in a positive way of the omega-3s. let's see, what are some of the other effects of fish oil? It helps with fatty liver, reducing fatty liver. A fatty liver is a result, it's kind of a lifestyle problem that's associated with prediabetes and a metabolic syndrome, which is the precursor to diabetes. And the liver actually, on an ultrasound, has fatty deposits on it. And fish oil has been shown to reduce that. And at the same time, improve insulin resistance, which is the cause of type 2 diabetes. So when we're looking at the rate of diabetes in America, which is for those over 60, already 1/3 have diabetes.
1/3.
1/3. And another third are going to develop diabetes before they die.
Wow.
And there's a question about that final third, whether they just died before they got diabetes or whether they would ever get it. It's hard to say, but
Wow, that's a huge number of people. I had no idea.
yes,
And so omega-3 reduces the risk of that.
yes. But that's not to say that that's the only thing you should do. It's also been shown that lifestyle changes really do strongly affect that. More exercise, less carbohydrates in the diet. So that's why when we're looking at one of the 5 basic supplements that fish oil is so high on the list.
Right. You put it as a number 3 in your hierarchy of the 5 most important ones. What was the first one? Was vitamin D, then it was vitamin C, now it's omega-3.
Right. And there's a couple of caveats about fish oil that I should talk about.
Oh, do.
One is it's a blood thinner. So it's often discontinued a week or so before surgeries. And if a person's on a medication that's a blood thinner, it's important to talk to your doctor. That medication can be adjusted if a person's taking fish oil so the blood doesn't get too thin, but the doctor should know. And the other thing is that a person should take it on a regular basis if they're on another medication. There is a lot of contamination of fish in the ocean, and reputable companies will do independent testing of the fish oil and guarantee that it's not going to have those heavy metals in it and the aromatic hydrocarbons that can be bad for a person.
Seems like I remember that mercury is one of the heavy metal contaminants that are in fish that are higher on the food chain. Is that right?
That's correct. So a lot of people are moving towards krill as another source of these omega-3s.
So do you want to say anything about the dosage? I know that you may advise people individually, but in terms of how much people should generally take if they want to have this?
In general, I recommend 2,000 milligrams a day taken with food. One of the biggest complaints I have about fish oil is people burping it up with an unpleasant taste.
Yeah, that would be me too.
All right. So if you take fish oil at the end of a meal, the contents of that meal are in your stomach churning around for 45 minutes to an hour, and it's mostly water-soluble substances, and the fish oil is just going to float on top, right where it can be burped up. That's not a good thing.
I see.
So what I recommend is to take it right at the beginning of a meal. So it's pushed through with the first of the food into the small intestine, so it's not going to get burped up. The second thing I recommend, and my patients have confirmed that it works, is to store it in the freezer.
Oh,
And then it's slower, the capsule's slower to break down in the stomach, and will be more likely to get pushed through before that happens.
oh, that's a good tip. What I guess I want to ask you myself, is there anything about vegetable sources straight from the algae, like I have been taking, versus fish oil that is one's better than the other or worse than the other?
No, it's mostly a matter of economics. Interestingly enough, when you see high omega-3s in eggs, those chickens are fed marine algae to achieve that. And that's done in quite large batches, although marine algae tends to be a lot more expensive than the fish oil
Right.
for human consumption. So I don't quite understand the economics of all that, but most people switch to fish oil away from marine algae for the price, for the cheaper price, but still a lot of people like marine algae if they're vegetarian and they don't want to eat an animal product.
I gotcha. Well, let's see if there's something else I wanted to ask you about this. So one thing you mentioned, that there will be some brands that do more testing for contamination than others do. And I'm not asking you to recommend a brand, but would I be right in saying that people, if they get their omega-3 through your office at the Champlain Center for Natural Medicine, you will be offering ones that are not contaminated, or
Right, we
have
can
more
stand
testing?
behind our products, whereas if a person goes to another store, it's sometimes they can't be guaranteed the quality of those products.
Right. Well, I know, I mean, I've been your patient for a couple of decades and more, and I know from my experience, you search out the best in pretty much every supplement that you offer through your practice.
Well, the highest quality at the lowest price is what we try to do. So yes, that's true.
And yeah, so that's, I think that's an important fact too, as somebody who tries to stay away from heavy metals as much as I can. I would want to get my omega-3, whichever the source is, from a place that would be able to stand behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do.
So are you all done, or you got any more to tell them?
Well, that's about all I've got on fish oil.
Well, I'll just recommend again to everybody, get in touch with the Champlain Center for Natural Medicine in Shelburne, Vermont. If you live close enough to become one of Bill's patients or one of the other doctors in his practice, it's done a lot for me. So anyway, that's probably more commercial than you wanted me to give, but I'm very much enthusiastic about it. So thanks for being on this video with me, Bill.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And thanks for watching.